Everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my June wrap-up, and I feel like this might be a long one because I kind of read 22 books in June. I don't really know how, and I don't really know that it was a good idea, but it was kind of fun and it happened, so we're just gonna get right into it because there's a lot of books. So I have these loosely sorted into categories because just going for it was not working for me. So I'm gonna start out with specifically YA fantasy and then I'll do the rest of them. So the first book I have here is Heir by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third book in the Throne of Glass series, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. This has definitely been my favorite one of this series so far. I just thought it was really good. I loved 2 of the 3 POVs in this book, and I was talking about it in the vlog in which I read this, how I don't like this other POV, but a lot of you said that it gets better, so I trust you guys. So hopefully I end up liking this character in the future in this series, but the reason this book got a 4 instead of a 5 stars is because of that one POV, and every time that POV came up I was like, really? We're doing this again? However, I did like the other 2 POVs a lot more. Selena's was my favorite, and I really liked the other character that was finally introduced into her POV, and I can't wait to see how that relationship goes. And even the other POV following Dorian and Kale I really enjoyed, and overall I liked 2/3 of this book a lot. I can't wait to pick up Queen of Shadows. I'm really hoping that I will get to it in July. Probably July. So that was really good. The next book I have here is King of Scars, with, I was gonna say it's the first book in the King of Scars duology. This is by Leigh Bardugo, obviously, and I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I kind of liked this book. It's nowhere near as good as Leigh Bardugo's other series. I really loved Shadow and Bone, and I really loved Six of Crows, but honestly this book just really wasn't doing it for me. It's not that it's bad, and I love the characters, don't get me wrong, but the plot of this one just wasn't super engaging, and it didn't really keep my attention for too long. I even tried to read this back in December. I think I got like 60 pages into it and I just could not continue, but I finally made myself pick it up. I got the audiobook, which definitely helped, but still it's just like an okay book. It's not amazing though, and I was really expecting amazing. Kind of the same thing that happened with Heir of Fire happened with King of Scars, because there are multiple POVs in this book. I think there's 2 and then kind of 3 in the second half of this book, and I really liked 2 of the POVs, but one of the others I was not disliking, but I wasn't really enjoying it that much, and I really liked the character, so it pained me that every time one of her POVs came up I was like, again, but it's just like wasn't my favorite, you know, and it hurts because I love that character, but I did not love her POV. So yeah, there's King of Scars. I was really hoping that I would love it. It was just okay. I'm really excited to read Rule of Wolves though, just to see if it gets better, or I mean I guess it could get worse, but we're not gonna think like that. It's gonna get better. So next up I have some YA that's like not really fantasy. So I have one completed series that I'm going to talk about in a minute, but I have a couple of others that I'm going to talk about first. So the first one I have here is Capturing the Devil by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the 4th and final book in the, I almost like Capturing the Devil series, the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was such a good conclusion to the series. I feel like it really tied the first 3 books together because they kind of feel like they could be singular entities almost, like you could kind of read them in any order, because the only thing that really runs through the entirety of the series is the romance between Thomas and Audrey Rose, which, by the way, I love the romance in this series so much. Honestly, like one of my new favorite fictional couples. I love them. That's not the point, but that definitely did increase my enjoyment of this series a lot, and I just thought it was a good conclusion. So the fact that the ending book to this series is really good makes me really excited to read the final book in the Kingdom of the Wicked series, which is also written by Carrie Maniscalco, so that's exciting. And I love this book. Next up I have the first 2 books in the Ranger's Apprentice series. This is The Ruins of Gorlon, and then we have The Burning Bridge. These are actually the first 2 books in Cass's favorite series. As always, her channel will be linked down below. You should all go subscribe. But we actually met up at the beginning of this month and we were like, we should annotate a book in each other's favorite series and exchange them. So we did, which is why I ended up reading the first book of the Ranger's Apprentice series, and I really liked it. It was just a really fun time. Same thing for the second one. It's just a really good story. John Flanagan's writing is amazing, and the imagery that he can create with what he writes is fantastic. I loved it. The characters and the plot so far is just really good, and I cannot wait to read the third one, which is actually right here, The Icebound Land. So this one kind of left off on a cliffhanger, so I'm excited to pick up the third one. I've just been really enjoying this series so far, so we can all say thank you to Cass. I feel like if you like high fantasy, you should pick this up, because while it's not really fantasy, it kind of gives me high fantasy vibes. So if you want like a younger, young adult, or older middle grade kind of high fantasy type story, this is an excellent suggestion, and you should pick it up if that sounds interesting to you. So next up, I'm going to talk about my completed series, which is the Shatter Me series by Tahereh Mafi. I mentioned, I think earlier in the year, that I picked up Shatter Me, and a lot of you guys told me you were really excited, and that made me really excited because obviously I trust all your opinions. You all have great taste. Thank you for the recommendation. So I think I'm going to talk about this series kind of in two separate chunks, just because I don't really want to go through it book by book. But I feel like the first part of the series and the second part of the series need to be talked about separately. So we have Shatter Me, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars, Unravel Me, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars, Ignite Me, which I gave a 5 out of 5 stars, and then the two novellas, Destroy Me and Fracture Me, did I give them each 3 stars? I think I gave them 3 stars. Although I think if I were to go back and reread Destroy Me, I would probably give it a 4 stars. So I love the first half of the series so much, and I can definitely see myself rereading this again at some point just because I loved it. Honestly, I can't believe that I didn't read this in middle school, because I vividly remember these books, like, as they were being published, because the eyes were just so, like, weird to me at the time. I was like, why is there a giant eye on that cover? I'm not reading that book. And then 10 years later, I'm like, oh my god, yes, Shatter Me. I just thought it was such an interesting series, and I really like the characters. I really like the romance in this series as well. I think it's my favorite aspect of the series, mainly because it does have a very large focus in like all of the books. There is plot, but I feel like it's kind of 50-50 with the romance, honestly. Which I love, because we all know I love romance in my books. So I also just loved Tahereh Mafi's writing in general. I feel like it's so different to anything else that I've seen in like YA books before, and it's so interesting. And I think Tahereh Mafi explains it best in the Dear Reader that is at the very beginning of this book. She says, the writing in this series is occasionally as erratic as its main character and serves as a visual representation of the chaos in Juliet's mind, which I just think is fascinating, and I've never seen a book written that way. I mean, I'm sure there are books like that, but this is the first one I've encountered. So as soon as I read that, I was like, absolutely, yes, I'm so excited. So yes, I absolutely adored the first part of the series. It was really good, and it's definitely like one of my new favorite series now. So now it's time to talk about the second half of this series, and it's not that I didn't like it, because I did, and I rated all of the books rather highly, but it's just so different from the first half of the series, and it's kind of jarring almost. So we have Restore Me, which I gave a 3 out of 5 stars, Shadow Me, which I also gave a 3 out of 5 stars, Defy Me, which, did I give this one 5 stars? Let me see here. Yeah. I don't remember what happened in this book, but okay. Find Me, which I think I also gave a 3 out of 5 stars. Is Find Me even am I losing it? Oh no, Find Me is the name of the 2 Kenji novellas put together. That's right. Reveal Me, which I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. Imagine Me, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars, and Believe Me, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars as well. I just find the second half of the series very interesting. I know Tahereh Mafi came back to write the second half of this series a while after she had originally finished the trilogy, and I don't want to say she shouldn't have, but I kind of want to say she shouldn't have, and it's not because I didn't like it, and it's not because I think these are bad or anything, but I just feel like this is not the direction I was thinking the second half of the series was gonna go, and it just all got weird. But honestly, after I kind of just accepted the fact that it got weird, I started enjoying it more. The main thing that I didn't really like about the second half of the series is I feel like Tahereh Mafi's writing in the first series was so much better. Just the way she would describe things and the way she wrote things was kind of just a little bit drier in the second half of the series, and I really liked the way that she was writing things in the first half with all the metaphors and repetition and all the strike-throughs and whatnot, and I feel like Juliet's mental state kind of regressed almost, at least it should have based on the things that were happening to her, but that wasn't introduced back into the writing, so it was all just like kind of dry. And I feel like if she would have continued the style of writing reflecting Juliet's mental state, I would have been like, yes. I just thought that would have been so much more on brand for Juliet's character, but that didn't happen, so it was just kind of like, I don't know. I really don't know how to talk about this series just because the second half was just weird. That's all I have to say is like, I don't know, but I can tell you that I really liked Believe Me. And just everything that happened in this novella, I loved. It was honestly the closure I needed, but I was really sad when it was over. Literally, this one ended like kind of abruptly, and I was like laying down as I was reading it, and I shot up and I was like audibly, I was like, what? I wanted more. I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared for the series to be over, because even though the second half was weird, overall, I still love the series, and I will definitely be rereading the first half of it at least again at some point in time. So that's Shatter Me. A lot of thoughts, a lot of things to say. Yeah, that's it for that. I just spent a lot of time talking about Shatter Me, but that is like the highlight of my June reading, basically. So she deserved the time she got. Anyway, moving on. The next category is romance. I've actually read 5 romance books, I believe, but 3 of them are novellas, which I'm going to talk about after I talk about the physical books that I have here. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Beach Read. I gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars. Honestly, should I have read another Emily Henry book after I didn't like People We Meet on Vacation? No. Am I going to read Book Lovers at some point though? Yeah, you know, 3 strikes you're out. She's only on 2 strikes. So I won't spend too much time talking about this book just because I already talked about it kind of in depth in a vlog as to why I don't like this. But my main like problem with this book is the way that it's marketed, because if I had known what this book was like actually like, I could have told you that I wouldn't like this book. But I just feel like the title and the cover are misleading almost, because A, no beach reading happens in this book. I mean, like, a little bit does, but it spans like a paragraph, if that. 4 lines of text in this like 360 page book. That's it. Also, if you look at the cover of this book, I'm like, oh, fun, summer, rom-com? Yes, and that is the way I have heard it described. That's the way it is marketed. It is not that though. This book talks a lot about grieving and our main character struggling with how she views her relationship with her dad even after he's gone, because she also found out that her dad cheated on her mom, and that's just like not the kind of thing that I look for in a summer rom-com. It's not even talked about in the blurb on the back, so when I picked this up, I was like, enemies to lovers? They're gonna write each other's books? Yeah. But that's like not what I got. So honestly, I blame the marketing team and not Emily Henry for my disappointment in this book, because had I known what this book was actually like, I wouldn't have picked it up. So there's Beach Read. And then the next book I have here, I'm also not going to talk too much about because I also read that in like the same video, but it's The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I wasn't sure what I was going to think about this book going into it, but I actually ended up loving it. An easy 5 out of 5 stars. I didn't even know going into this book that this was like a hate to love workplace romance on top of the fake dating, because the fake dating I knew about, but I didn't know they like worked in the same place. And when I learned that, I was like, oh, hold on now, I'm gonna love it. And I did. It's so long though for a romance, but honestly, I was eating it up. Overall, I loved it. My favorite part of this book is when they are in Spain for the wedding, just the way they act. That's all you need to know. Moving on to the other 3 romance, they're not really books, all 3 of them are novellas, but the other 3 romance reads that I had this month, these are the 3 novellas that Ali Hazelwood recently came out with. I loved all of these. I originally heard the concept for Stuck With You, which this one I gave a 4 out of 5 stars, and I was like, absolutely. They're stuck in an elevator together. One of them is a civil engineer. I'm an engineering major, so I was like, yes, engineers in romance books, I need to read it. And I ended up loving Stuck With You, and then I had to read the others. So I also read Under One Roof. This is my favorite one out of the 3 of them. I had to give it a 5 out of 5 stars. I just love the concept of this book, and this one I am briefly going to go into the synopsis just because I think the synopsis is funny. Our main character gets left a house in the will of this woman that she worked for and was really close to, and it turns out there's actually somebody that already lives in the house. This very attractive man. And she like knocks on the door and she's like, hey, I'm here to live with you. And he's like, fuck off. They end up obviously getting together in the end, even though they hated each other. But it's like a forced proximity, hate to love, everything I could have possibly wanted. I loved it. And then the last one of this series of novellas is Below Zero. I gave this one a 3 stars. This one was definitely like, I liked the science in this one the most, if that makes sense. Like, the other one followed an environmental engineer and a civil engineer, but this one followed an aerospace engineer, which is what I wanted to do for a long time, until I realized I did not have the brain cells for that. But originally that was my plan. So I kind of felt like I could live vicariously through our main character. This one was just really fun. I liked the love interest. It wasn't my favorite. However, there was one aspect of this book that I loved, because all 3 of these novellas follow 3 different friends, Hannah, Mara, and Sadie. All 3 of them. It's about all 3 of them finding their science loves, I guess. And then at the end of Below Zero, all 3 of them like meet in person because they've just been FaceTiming throughout the time span of these novellas, and all of the boyfriends come into, and it was just like really fun. I liked it a lot. These novellas were just a really good time, so if you want like some short, fun romances, I would highly recommend these. Oh my god, am I finally at the last book? So this is the manga category, basically. It's just Lovesickness by Junji Ito. I think I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars maybe. I loved the main story Lovesickness, and it is my favorite Junji Ito that I've read thus far. Like, of all of his stories that I've read so far, that is my favorite one. But the rest of them just like weren't it for me. But the first one I liked so much I had to give the book a 4 out of 5 stars. So sorry, I'm out of steam. That's all I'm gonna say about it. It was good, but I'm so tired now. I just talked for literally 40 minutes. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry if this is like incredibly rambly. I never write down notes about any of the books I read like for wrap-ups, and I didn't do it for this one either. But I feel like I really should have done it for this one, because that was a lot of books to talk about, and now my brain's kind of fried, honestly, but it's fine. So despite that, I hope you still enjoyed the video. If you did, please do let me know down below what your favorite book you read this month is, and as always, if you're feeling shady, let me know your least favorite book. Those ones are always very entertaining. So yes, I will see you in my next video.